Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest is Diane Sare, and as many times as I have her on, I fail to neglect to tell everybody that she's running as an independent candidate in New York State against Kirsten Gillibrand. So, Diane, I watch and listen and see what's going on with the migrant crisis. And New York State is one of the states that are most hard hit by it. And you travel the state. Give us and, your perspective on what's going on.
Well, I mean, the problem is that when this began, we already had a huge economic collapse. So the city of New York, for example, had 100,000 homeless children in their public school system back in 2018. Now they have 109,000 homeless children when the schools open again. And of course, these schools, the homeless are not evenly sprinkled. It's 1 out of 10, if you can imagine, 1 out of 10 children homeless in the school system. A large number of them are in the Bronx and Brooklyn. So I spoke with a substitute teacher. She's retired. She told me she had taught in a class which had over 50% homeless students. The body odor was overwhelming. I mean, how can a child learn in that circumstance? Right?
Right.
It's virtually impossible to concentrate. You don't even know where you're going to eat, if you're going to eat, if your mother's being assaulted while you're away. One of the things apparently that's happening, I was thinking what was it, 87,000 more IRS agents they were talking about hiring? Why don't they send their 87,000 people instead of to the IRS, send them to the northern and southern borders so we can start vetting people? I'm not opposed to immigration, but this is not immigration. This is a scheme for money laundering, human trafficking, slave labor. And, there are two different causes, and there's more to be said, but one is just outright criminality. I mean, how is it that people are coming here from West Africa? I went to the Roosevelt Hotel when Mayor Adams had everyone sleeping on the sidewalk, which I think he just did maybe to get more federal funding or something, make it really obvious. And I went there, and everyone there was from West Africa. And thank God I had 2 years of high school French, so I was able to engage with a young man from Mauritania. And I said, "How did you come here?" He said, "Oh, well, they came to Mauritania. They told us Joe Biden had opened the borders." I mean, they literally are saying that, Joe Biden. They said, "Oh, we love Joe Biden. Joe Biden had opened the borders. Give us $5,000 and you can get on a plane." Now, for some young guy in Mauritania to come up with $5,000, you can imagine it's his whole entire family. He's probably one of their most resourceful people. I said to him, "Don't you think it would be better if we would stop destabilizing your country?" And he said, "Well, I would like that. I would love to stay in Mauritania, but we don't even have a functional government. I have no future." So he flies on this plane owned by somebody or other to Nicaragua and then comes on a bus, right? So who is running this? And this is why I'm saying if you really want to stop the problem, you're going to have to put Wall Street through an orderly bankruptcy. You're going to have to look into what Jamie Dimon is doing in HSBC and the drug money laundering, etc. Then you have other things like what the Clintons did to Haiti, where it's you destroy a country and the people leave. Well, you're responsible for that. I don't think you have a right to seal the border and say you can't come here. We just destroyed your country and we want you to drop dead. So we
Mhm.
have to change that policy. But obviously, the migration could be handled better. You're going to have to come up with a much quicker intake system of vetting and screening. Apparently, there are now entire drug gangs that have moved into some of the homeless shelters in New York City. So it's very dangerous if you're someone with small children and you're in there with a drug gang. And then, of course, now I heard last week there was something like 1,300 people who came from northern New York through Canada which I already knew was a big problem because I was there 2 years ago meeting with people in Plattsburgh and other places. They told me they had neighbors who were reporting that people were camping in their backyards. Yeah. So, it's just absolutely huge. It's a sign of a breakdown of civilization, and there would be ways we could handle it if there were any intention to, but we don't seem to have that.
Okay, it's reported a lot about the southern border, but since I, I'm more close than you are to the Canadian border, so the people coming into this country from the Canadian border, where are they coming from?
Well, that's the odd thing. It's like the southern border. They're coming from all over the world.
Okay,
And so how are they getting there? I saw one special on it and there was somebody there from Lithuania, and I'm saying Lithuania. What, how is he
right.
getting in? But also there's a lot of Mexicans and other South America people from Ibero-America getting to Canada and then coming in that way, apparently.
Wow. Wow.
I
You
mean,
know,
I would just say, look, thank God. We saw this horrible scene in London where they actually burned down a hotel that was housing migrants, which I'm
oh,
very suspicious about. The British are evil bastards. I don't mean the people, but the empire, the bankers, the colonial mentality. They probably paid someone to do that. I think there are people in the US who want us to be violent, who would like to goad us. You look at the press coverage, like the migrants who assaulted a couple of police officers. And so the TV station goes down to the prison so the people they arrest can give them the middle finger. You know what I'm saying? It's designed to be incendiary because I think they want people to start getting violent, to start attacking them. And I would say it's a credit to the goodness of the American people that they don't want to do that. I don't think people even take pleasure in seeing other people suffer.
right,
What they want is this to be orderly. We don't want people just coming here to be slave labor or sex slaves, or trafficked in that way or part of drug gangs. We want something orderly where if people are coming, they can learn English and be integrated into society. And we should have a fair system where people who are trying to come here legally are on a 10-year waiting list. So I just think it's not incompetence, or you could call it incompetent by design. It's a criminal policy to abuse people.
I look at it this way. All these people are flooding into the United States. And if they get a driver's license, they're automatically given a registration form. These people are not citizens of the United States, and they're giving voter registration form. Isn't it in the Constitution that you have to be a citizen of this country to vote?
Yes, and that's as it should be. But they don't need, I mean, they, some people are happy to get thousands of illegal voters voting. They actually don't need that because there's so much corruption through the computer system as it is, which I experienced when I ran
Yeah.
against Schumer. So they can steal it every way. I often joke with people when they say I'm not from your state, I can't vote for you, and I say, well, go ahead and mail in a ballot. Everyone can vote in New York.
Wow.
I mean, as a joke, let me say that for the benefit of the FBI. I want to bring up one other issue of the migrant crisis.
Okay.
Look, people have seen the stock market teetering and falling over the last days. This is a bubble. It has to burst. We've been doing nothing but printing money since 2008. And like all bubbles, like all empires, it has to keep consuming. It has to fuel its expansion. One of the ways of fueling the expansion is to use the migrants as conduits of vast sums of money. So, what do I mean? A bus ticket from Texas up here is selling for one of them Homeland Security is paying $1,400. Then I learned from a place upstate that 50 migrants showed up at a warehouse or some kind of downtown building that only had one restroom in it. So the city council investigated. They discovered that the owner of this warehouse or whatever it is was getting $5,000 per head for each person. If they are, and they're giving people these debit cards where they can spend a lot of money. Oh, consumer spending is up. Everyone's shopping. Well, everyone's not shopping. You just handed out a bunch of cards that people have to spend money on, right? So they are being used to also disguise the actual collapse of the financial system, even though for anyone with half a brain, you just have to look at the condition of the streets, the conditions in which people are living, what the rent is in New York City, for example, and you can see the collapse right there in front of you. And
Mhm.
I think it's very barbaric. I mean, look, the economy is not something created by God. It's not like the solar system, the Earth has been here for 5 billion years. We create the economy. So we could change the thing right now, right? That's under control of man. Don't tell me we have to do X, Y, and Z because we don't have money we somehow have money to send billions of dollars of weapons to Israel and Ukraine, but we don't have 5 cents to increase someone's social security payments. I mean, give me a break, right? It's people are so brainwashed to act as if the economic system or the financial crisis is a given that we can't mess with because supposedly some corrupt fool or, idiot who was duped signed a contract. No, there's a higher law, which is human life comes first.
So, the election is 3 months away, maybe a couple of days less than that. We've got Trump and we've got Kamala Harris. Harris and her running mate are for open borders. How bad do you think that's going to be?
I guess it's so she can keep up her drug habit. I mean, I don't know. You know, Harris, I would say, really doesn't exist. Speaking of conduits, she's just a conduit for the British imperial system. I mean, she's dumping the Biden people and bringing in the Obama people. And
Right,
remember Obama, what were we doing? We were droning Eric Holder, right? The guy who's selecting Kamala Harris's vice president, or who did, I guess, recommended this Waltz guy. What's Eric Holder, Obama's attorney general? He found that it was perfectly constitutionally legitimate to carry out extrajudicial assassinations by drone, even of American citizens. And speaking of the financial collapse, Eric Holder also said, oh, of course we could never. One of our people actually asked him at a press conference, how is it after all of these banks collapsed, not one single major banker has even been indicted? And
right.
Eric Holder said, oh, no, we could never do that. The whole system would collapse. Right. So this is what Kamala Harris is bringing in. I would say that you shouldn't forget also you have Robert Kennedy Jr. on the independent line, who is, I don't know if he's going to end up making it onto the ballot in New York because of this. First, they challenged his signatures. That was, he successfully fought back on that. Now they're challenging his residency. And I, as a candidate and running as an independent, I can tell you that in a way the election is stolen before you even go to vote because they prevent you from having choices. And I
Mm,
think what happened to Kennedy when he tried to run as a Democrat, I was really glad that someone of his name recognition made a statement about that. If you remember, the DNC told him even if he won the primary in New Hampshire or Iowa, that his delegates would go to Biden.
mhm.
So they were just announcing, yes, we will steal your vote, which caused them to leave the Democratic Party and then have to jump through all the hoops. But the Kamala, the Harris Waltz thing is just, look, we don't have a president now. You realize that?
Right.
Everyone knows that. This is a horror. Our Constitution is a presidential system. The
Mm.
president is supposed to run the country. So this is a coup. I would say it's a coup that began on November 22nd, 1963, with the assassination of Kennedy. But this is very obvious now. And I think it's very unnerving for Americans to recognize that here we are in a presidential system of a democratic republic, and we don't even have a president at the moment. That's pretty bad.
Now, if Trump was to win, do you think he would close the borders?
Probably. But
Okay.
I don't think he would stop doing the things that are causing the refugees, right? Like if you're going to say Venezuela is our enemy and we're going to crush them with brutal sanctions, well, what do you expect? People are going to leave the country. I just think that's cruel. So if you want to limit the people coming in, okay, it's fine to build the wall, but then you don't have a right to run around overthrowing governments or assassinating the defense minister of Iran and things like that.
So they it said that New York is like one of the biggest states with the immigration crisis. Would you say that this is what's happening in New York? Would you say is happening on a smaller scale in other states?
Yes, it is. It definitely is. I mean, New York City is famous and it's a sanctuary city, so people know that if they come and they need to be housed, that the law is that they're supposed to be housed, even though there's no space for them. Um, so I think people really want to come to New York and they're given that option when they get here. Why they're given a choice of where they come, I don't really understand. But at any rate, so it's extreme, but it's bad everywhere. I mean, and to give you another example, look, so Adams thought he was going to dissuade people from coming by putting a time limit on how long they could stay in housing. So I was speaking with a woman who is herself an immigrant from Europe who is a social worker, and she's been assigned, her job is now to work in intake at one of these facilities. And she said, look, so if you're a single man, you can stay for 30 days and then you have to go out and you have to reapply to get in or get somewhere else. If you're a family with children, you can stay for 60 days. She said, do you know what this is doing to these children? They're going insane. They're there for 60 days and then they get in school, they begin to stabilize, and then they have to move.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm saying everything is being done in the most disruptive, insane, incompetent way possible, clearly designed to create chaos and perhaps violence.
So do you think that this situation is caused deliberately? You said chaos. Is it deliberate that all this chaos is happening?
Yes, either that or people are just exceedingly moronic. And I do believe that a lot of our officials are really dumb, but I don't know if they're that dumb. I mean, you couldn't not know. So I do think it's being designed, and it's being designed for what I said, to dehumanize, just like making Americans tolerate genocide in Gaza. I mean, isn't this something? The scenes of beheaded Palestinian babies are all over the place. You know, the scenes of the horrors being done to children, babies under the rubble, that and and we're being told this is not genocide and we're going to keep funding it. And then Bibi Netanyahu comes here and gets 58 standing ovations. So they're trying to dehumanize us. I don't think any babies should be killed anywhere. I don't think children are a legitimate target in war. In fact, I don't think we should have wars. I agree with General Douglas MacArthur after Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the surrender of Japan. He said, we have had our last chance. Those were literally his words. After seeing the damage done by the nuclear bomb, he said, this is our last chance. If we don't come up with some better way of resolving our disagreements, then man, there will be Armageddon. That's
Which
what he said.
which it seems like when I turned the news on, it seemed like the hostilities in the Middle East is increasing. I anticipate Armageddon, unfortunately, any day now.
Well, I think that's right. And I just wanted to recommend, and I don't know if you'll be able to join us tomorrow, Cynthia, but 11 a.m., the International Peace Coalition is having a specially large meeting because it's the 79th anniversary of the Nagasaki bombing. And as you may be aware, they did war game scenarios positing a war between Israel and Iran. And this was done by a bunch of congressional staffers and military people. And what the war games showed is that a war between Israel and Iran went nuclear very, very quickly. Now, I know Putin sent Shoigu, the defense minister, over to Iran and was urging that they not respond to the assassinations that Israel is doing everything they can to provoke Iran. Bibi Netanyahu, I think, thinks his political career depends on having wider war. So Putin is saying, please don't do this. I will negotiate. That's a really tough job to take because how you're going to control Israel, I don't know. But that is what he's trying to do to prevent this from just going off the rails, which I think is really dangerous.
So, getting back to the initial theme of this our conversation, we're spending an awful lot of money on the migrant situation. The bank has got to break at some point, or has it already?
I think it already has. I think the
Okay.
bank already has broke. I mean, look, they're just printing money now and borrowing money now. Rand Paul, I think that's who it was in the Senate who pointed out we're sending weapons to Ukraine with money we're borrowing from China. That's not far from the truth. So, yeah, the bank already broke. They don't care. They can just print money and slush it around however they want.
Mm-hmm. So, from your perspective, besides a nuclear holocaust where everything is destroyed, everybody is destroyed, what do you see if we keep going down this road? What will the ultimate outcome be?
Oh, if we continue down this road, we'll all be dead. I mean, it's been nice knowing you. That's that glad we got to meet in our short span together here. No, if we keep going this way, we're all dead. That's what's going to happen. I hope that I'm trying to disrupt it. That's why I'm running for office. You're trying to disrupt it by getting the truth out with your programs regularly. But if nothing disrupts it, that's where we're headed. I think that's pretty clear. I mean, I've been amazed. I have to tell you, each time it escalates, I mean, remember, Biden told us we will never send tanks to Ukraine. And then we're sending tanks. And then he says, we will never send long range missiles to Ukraine. And then we're sending long range missiles. And then he says, we are never going to send F-16 fighter, nuclear capable fighter bombers. And then we're sending F-16s. Now he said, we're never sending ground troops. Well, we've got a lot of ground troops in Romania right now. Macron, what? Go on.
American citizens, young men and women, are, are the people that are being sent there?
Well, they're in Romania. They're ready to go. I mean, this is complete insanity. So I keep being astounded by the lack of a bottom. When people say things have hit rock bottom, well,
Mhm.
at least there's rocks on the bottom. I don't think there's there seems to be no bottom. They've pulled the bottom out and we just keep continuing to provoke Russia, whether we're going to provoke them with Ukraine or provoke them with Iran, because Iran has they made a lot of treaty agreements with Iran. So we could have our war with Russia through Ukraine or through Iran. I'm really amazed. And I think, I don't know that the election will be allowed to proceed freely and fairly. And I don't know if we're going to go over the cliff before that time. I know Putin, Xi Jinping, Erdogan of Turkey with all of his limitations, the leadership of South Africa, Lula in Brazil. There's a lot of big nations that are trying to slam on the brakes and prevent us from going over the cliff. I don't know if they'll succeed.
Wow. So I know you have to go in a couple of minutes. Um, your prediction for the future. How many more people are coming in? And what's really alarming is people, the average person, doesn't know the situation with the migrants and how dehumanizing it is, right?
Well, I think the people who live in New York City, Queens, these other boroughs who are experiencing Staten Island, um, they have an idea. People in a lot of cities, well, you are Albany, people in Buffalo, they can see it. Rockland County. I was astounded. I went to the DMV to get petition signatures, and I only met one US citizen. It was just, so people, I think, do have a sense, although I did an interview with someone based out of Canada, and he was saying, well, is it really that bad? And I said, yeah, it is really that bad. And you can't make a dehumanizing, crazy proposal to deal with it. Um, but it's a real problem, and that's why I'm saying take those 87,000 IRS people that you want to hire and send them to the borders, and let's see if we can solve this in a more humane fashion.
Now, you and I have been interested in politics for a while. I'm a little bit older than you are, so, you know,
I'm catching up.
you're war. But you've been in a number of campaigns. You're out there. You're slugging it out. Did you ever see it as bad as it is now? I think it's so terrible that people have to live with this fear and hopelessness.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in my lifetime, it's never been this bad, and I can't think of a time in history except maybe the Dark Ages in the 1300s in Italy, where a third of the population died of the Black Death, and people were in all these wacky, superstitious cults. And then what created the Renaissance, right? It was a handful of artists and scientists who had a different idea about the lawfulness of the universe. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci or Brunelleschi, who made the dome, or Nicholas of Cusa. I mean, there were, yeah, so we have the Dark Age. So if we wanted to have a Renaissance, that's fine. It would definitely be a Renaissance if we changed direction.
Hopefully we can.
Yes, we can. Of course we can. It's a question of how badly we want to do it and if enough people
Right.
will work to that end.
So, Diane, from now until election day, I'm sure you and I will be talking again. You've been listening to Diane Sare, who's running in New York State as an independent against Kirsten Gillibrand. I'm Cynthia Pooler. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you.